Hi friends, welcome back to Extraordinary Connections. My name is Dillon Burns. I'm the pastor at Manchester United Methodist Church and glad to be with you here for another of our daily devotionals. And today I'd like to talk about the great old hymns. There's an interesting phenomenon that has happened to me in every church I've been in, which is that I often end up in the position of selecting the hymns that we use in the service. And at some point, someone will say something to me about how we should sing more of the great old hymns. And I love this, and I laugh at it. Here's what I love about it. I love that people are engaged in worship and that music is one thing that touches us deeply, and that when we sing songs that are meaningful to us, it enhances our worship experience. What I chuckle about is that there is no such thing as the great old hymns. A little story for you. When I was a bit younger than I am and working as an intern in the church that I grew up in, I went once with the deacon who was helping introduce me to some of the pastoral care aspects of ministry. Went with her to visit some folks in a living facility. And she asked me to bring along a hymnal because she knew that I enjoyed singing. And some of these folks were less responsive and conversational than others, and so she invited me to open that hymnal and sing to them. And oftentimes, they, remembering the words that they had sung so many times, would sing along with me. And so I sang a lot of Amazing Grace and those great old hymns. Had an interesting experience once, though, when I was sitting with someone, we were singing songs, and they made a request of In the Garden. And I said, oh, I've never heard that one before. And I looked it up in the back of the hymnal, and I found it, and I stumbled through trying to sight read In the Garden. Now let me ask you, is In the Garden one of the great old hymns? Most likely for you, it is. I've come to learn it since, and I love it. And folks all around love it. And it's a part of their history and the songs that they consider to be the great old hymns. But it is a reminder to me that there is no set compendium anywhere of great hymns. And oftentimes we equate age with their quality, thinking these hymns back from the 1700s and 1800s are better than the hymns of the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 2000s. What we don't realize we're dealing with is something called selection bias. See, over time, we only hang on to the good hymns, the hymns that we like. There were a lot of hymns written in the 1700s. Not all of them are in the hymnal today. In the same way, Charles Dickens wasn't the only author of his time. How many of his colleagues do we remember? Mostly just Charles Dickens. We decided that he was the best, and so we've hung on to him and dropped the others. Charles Wesley wrote thousands of hymns. We have a lot of them in the hymnal, but not thousands. We hung on to the ones we decided were worth hanging on to. And so oftentimes when we talk about the great old hymns, we're just talking about the ones that we've liked enough to carry forward in history and leave the others behind. And so when we look around at the music of today, what we don't realize is we haven't gone through that process yet of discovering what connects with us and what is going to be left behind in 20 or 50 or 100 years. There are great new hymns of today, just as there are great old hymns, just as there are not so good old hymns and not so good new hymns. It's a curious thing. And in reflecting on this, I've asked myself, what is it that makes a hymn good? To be sure, it's a lot of things. It's the way it connects with us individually. It's the emotion that the music evokes. But something I've been thinking about more and more is just the composition of the words on the page. And this may be useful to you if you are in a setting right now where you're not able to sing as a part of worship. Perhaps the worshiping service that you're in is limiting singing based on how it can spread the coronavirus, and so instead you're simply reading the words or having someone speak the words. There's still a lot to be gained there. And just as a brief example, I've pulled up a favorite hymn of mine. It's on number 64 in the United Methodist hymnal, which I have here. And it's Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty. It is an old hymn. It was written in 1826 by a gentleman named Reginald Herber, who is a relatively educated fellow, and as I learned in the history of this hymn, wrote this hymn particularly for Trinity Sunday. And so as you read through the words, if you really take a look for it, you can see a lot of the different literary, poetic things that he's doing, starting there with those first three words, Holy, Holy, Holy. It's Trinitarian from the get-go. And if you keep going through, you'll find that there are other Trinitarian things built into the hymn itself. It talks about God in three persons, blessed Trinity, but he does more than that. He talks about how there are cherubim and seraphim and, and saints. It's in a different spot in the line, but there's a trio there, saints, cherubim, and seraphim. And later it talks about God being which wert and art and evermore shall be, another Trinitarian piece. And then in one line it says, all thy works shall praise thy name in earth and sky and sea. Trinitarian. And if you pull out this hymn at some point, or you pull open a computer or a phone and you look up the words, you might see some more of that. You might see there's something really intentional going on in the way that he composed the words to this hymn. And so I invite you to find a hymn that's a favorite of yours and really look at just the words on their own. What are the clever things that they're doing? What are the unique ways they have of speaking faith that really are engaging with you? What is it that they're doing that makes their work worth carrying through into the future? Friends, it's good to stand on the shoulders of those from long ago, to allow their creative work to give us an expression of our faith. Friends, go in peace.